Hi guys, Neil again with another episode of the Energy Academy. Picking up from where we left off, in this episode I'll be explaining how my generation stack interacts with demand and subsequently impacts prices. So let's return to that mini energy system that I built in part 1. If you remember, we've got wind, nuclear, gas turbines and gas peaking plants that make up our generation stack. To make things more interesting, we need a source of demand. So let's imagine a small town. The town is full of homes and businesses, and it has a peak demand of 90 megawatts and a pretty simple demand profile. Overnight, when people are asleep, demand's low. As people wake up and businesses open, demand increases. As people finish the working day, go home, stick the kettle on, stick the TV on, demand hits its peak of 90 megawatts. At the end of the day, the townsfolk retire to bed, switch all the appliances off, and demand falls again. And finally, to link our new demand to our generation stack, we'll need to build a little transmission system. So now we're all set. We've got generation, demand, and transmission. So back to our generation stack. Let's pick a point in the day and figure out how the stack interacts with demand at that time. It's 2 p.m. and demand for the town is 50 megawatts, which means the town requires 50 megawatt hours between 2 and 3. Also, let's assume it's a windy day and that our wind turbines are producing at full capacity. In our generation stack, our wind turbines can produce 20 megawatts and our nuclear power can produce 50 megawatts. This means that we can meet the town's demand just from wind and asking our nuclear power to provide 30 megawatt hours of electricity. We could, of course, meet the entire demand with nuclear or by asking our gas to turn up. However, that would cost more than meeting it through just wind and nuclear, as our gas has a higher short-run marginal cost than the former. And if you remember the merit order that I mentioned, the cheapest sources of electricity get used first. So, in this situation, what's the price of electricity? In this instance, generating an extra megawatt hour would require asking our nuclear plant to turn up by 1 megawatt for an hour, which would cost us £2. Therefore, the electricity price is £2 per megawatt hour, and we say that nuclear has set the price. So, now we understand how demand and our generation stack interact. Let's repeat the process across the entire day. As demand fluctuates, different generation is turned on and off, with different sites setting the price. When demand's at its lowest, wind can satisfy the entirety of demand and it sets the price. When demand is highest, our gas peaker has to turn up and the electricity price spikes. This is how demand and generation interact, and is fundamentally how prices in the wholesale market for electricity are determined. However, I've made loads of simplifications and assumptions in this process. For example, in the real world, nuclear can't ramp from 0 to 100 instantly. And what happens if it's not windy? And where does battery energy storage come into the equation? In reality, the balance of supply and demand is a whole lot more complicated. Countless factors come into play, and there are far more generators to balance supply and demand. However, at its heart, my mini electricity system represents exactly what happens in wholesale markets around Great Britain and the world on a day-to-day basis. Until next time, take it easy.